What a stroke looks like the day before it hits. Know this to protect yourself. Consider a seemingly ordinary Tuesday evening. You're in your kitchen, performing a mundane task like reaching for a glass on a high shelf. For a fleeting second, an unsettling sensation ripples through your hand. Your fingers tingle, a peculiar detachment making them feel alien, almost as if they belong to someone else. Your grip, usually reliable, falters, and the glass wobbles precariously, but mercifully stays in your grasp. You quickly dismiss it, perhaps attributing the odd sensation to a bad night's sleep, an awkward position you held your arm in earlier, or simply an overactive imagination. By the time you settle down for dinner, the incident is already a distant memory, deemed insignificant and entirely forgettable. Yet that brief, unsettling, and ultimately dismissed moment could very well be the most profound and critical warning your body will ever impart regarding its delicate internal balance. This seemingly minor episode, easy to rationalize away, often carries a weight of vital information that most people unknowingly overlook, and that oversight can have catastrophic consequences. Because here is a truth that most people do not fully grasp. A stroke does not manifest spontaneously without precursor. It rarely strikes out of the blue, a sudden, unprovoked assault on the brain. In the vast majority of cases, the body, a marvel of interconnected systems, diligently sends a series of signals, subtle, quiet, and often incredibly easy to dismiss or misinterpret, long before the full event materializes. These crucial signals can emerge as early as 24 hours prior to a major stroke, sometimes even up to 72 hours beforehand, offering a precious window of opportunity for intervention. Tragically, most individuals miss every single one of these vital alerts. This widespread failure to recognize warning signs is not a reflection of a person's intelligence or observational skills, but rather a systemic gap in education. Individuals are simply never taught what specific signs to actively look for, nor how to interpret them in the context of their overall health. I am Dr. Henry Collins, and over 15 years in clinical practice, I have witnessed this heartbreaking scenario unfold countless times. I have sat across from patients in hospital beds, intelligent, capable individuals from all walks of life, who, with a profound sense of regret and bewilderment, recount the same narrative repeatedly. I felt something unusual the day before, but I genuinely thought it was nothing significant. That singular sentence, uttered with a chilling consistency, has haunted me more times than I can possibly count, underscoring a fundamental flaw in how society and the healthcare system approach preventive stroke care. The current healthcare model, unfortunately, is not designed to profit from individuals proactively understanding the subtle indicators of a stroke before it devastates their lives. There is simply no established billing code for a comprehensive 20-minute educational conversation with a patient about pre-stroke warning signs, nor is there an incentive for widespread public education on this critical topic. And this profound lack of accessible, plain language information is precisely the void this channel aims to fill. By subscribing to Dr. Henry Collins and engaging with these videos, every single subscriber moves us closer to building a robust, community-driven resource that the traditional healthcare system, by its very nature, is not structured to provide real answers, presented in clear and understandable language, delivered before it is irrevocably too late. Allow me to reframe the common understanding of a stroke for you, because most people unknowingly harbor a fundamentally inaccurate perception of what this condition truly entails. You have likely been told, through various public health messages or casual conversations, that strokes are primarily a consequence of conditions like high blood pressure and elevated cholesterol, or that they are predominantly a disease afflicting the elderly. Furthermore, there's a prevalent notion that strokes are largely random occurrences, akin to a sudden bolt of lightning that either strikes you or leaves you unscathed, an unpredictable act of fate. It is imperative to understand that none of these widely held beliefs fully capture the true nature of a stroke. in many critical aspects, they are dangerously inaccurate and incomplete. A stroke is emphatically not a random, isolated event. Instead, it represents the final, catastrophic step in a complex, insidious process that has often been silently building within the body for an extended period, sometimes for years, sometimes for days, and almost invariably with discernible warning signs that, regrettably, are too often explained away or dismissed as mere stress, transient fatigue, or simply an unavoidable consequence of aging. The real underlying problem is not that your body fails to provide you with ample warning. On the contrary, your body is an exceptionally efficient communicator. The true challenge lies in the fact that no one has ever adequately taught you the subtle, yet vital language your body employs to transmit those critical warnings. And here is another crucial piece of information that almost nobody discusses. Nearly 30% of all strokes are preceded by a phenomenon known as a transient ischemic attack, or TIA, which occurs within the days or even weeks leading up to the main event. A TIA is, in essence, a mini-stroke, a temporary interruption of blood flow to a part of the brain. It produces real, measurable neurological symptoms, identical in nature to those of a full stroke, but with a critical distinction. These symptoms resolve on their own, often within minutes, sometimes lasting up to 24 hours, leaving no permanent damage. Because the symptoms are fleeting and fully resolve, individuals tend to shrug them off, attributing them to a moment of lightheadedness, a temporary odd feeling, or simply being overtired. They rarely call a doctor or seek emergency medical attention, convinced it was nothing serious. Consequently, the crucial warning is missed, and then, without further preparation, the full, devastating stroke arrives, often catching the individual completely off guard. Understanding TIAs is paramount because they are not benign. They are urgent harbingers of a potentially impending larger stroke, a clear signal that the brain's vascular supply is compromised and requires immediate investigation. Before I delve into the specific warning signs you need to recognize, it's absolutely essential that you understand what is fundamentally happening inside your brain when a stroke occurs. This foundational knowledge is key, as the seemingly disparate signs will make far more logical and intuitive sense once you comprehend the intricate machinery behind them. Your brain is, without question, the most energy-hungry organ in your entire body. While it weighs a mere 3 pounds, accounting for only about 2% of your total body mass, it demands and consumes approximately 20% of all the oxygen carried by your blood, along with a significant portion of your body's glucose supply. It achieves this extraordinary metabolic feat through an extraordinarily dense and complex network of blood vessels, a vast arterial tree branching into smaller arterioles, and an intricate web of microscopic capillaries that snake through every fold, fissure, and region of the brain. You can visualize this intricate system as a sprawling, meticulously planned city with millions of interconnected roads, where each road is diligently delivering vital fuel and resources to a different, specialized neighborhood. Every sensory perception, every thought, every movement, every memory, and every emotion relies on the uninterrupted flow of blood through this delicate vascular architecture. Now, a stroke fundamentally occurs when one of these critical roads, a blood vessel, either becomes blocked or ruptures. When a blood vessel is blocked, it's typically due to a clot that forms within the vessel, a chunk of atherosclerotic plaque that breaks loose from an artery wall and travels upstream, or a gradual narrowing of the vessel that has been building silently for years due to plaque accumulation. When this blockage occurs, the neighborhood of brain tissue downstream from it, deprived of its essential oxygen and glucose supply, rapidly begins to die. This is known as an ischemic stroke, and it accounts for approximately 87% of all stroke cases, making it the most common type. The brain tissue starved of oxygen and glucose suffers irreversible damage within minutes. The other major type of stroke, a hemorrhagic stroke, occurs when a blood vessel within or on the surface of the brain actually ruptures and bleeds directly into the surrounding brain tissue. The escaped blood itself is inherently toxic to the delicate neurons and glia support cells around it, and the rapidly increasing pressure from the bleeding crushes and displaces adjacent brain tissue. In either scenario, whether ischemic or hemorrhagic, the devastating result is ultimately the same. A specific region of the brain loses its vital function, and whatever cognitive or physical ability that particular region controlled, be it speech, voluntary movement, balance, vision, comprehension, or memory, begins to fail dramatically and potentially permanently. Here is the truly critical piece of information that underscores the importance of recognizing warning signs. Before that full catastrophic blockage or rupture happens, there are often precursor events. These frequently involve partial blockages, brief interruptions in blood flow, or tiny clots that form and then spontaneously dissolve. And crucially, these partial, temporary events produce partial symptoms. They are fleeting, coming and going, lasting mere seconds, a few minutes, or perhaps an hour, before vanishing completely. This transient nature is precisely why they are so easily dismissed. But make no mistake, those brief, self-resolving episodes are not benign anomalies. That is your body's emphatic warning. That is the day before. That is the precious opportunity to intervene. Here are the specific warning signs that most people completely miss, often to their profound detriment. Warning sign number 1, a sudden brief episode of numbness or weakness on one side of your body. This is by far the most common pre-stroke signal, and tragically, it is also the one most frequently dismissed or rationalized away. The sensation might manifest as feeling like your hand or arm has gone to sleep, and you can't quite shake it off, or your leg might suddenly feel unusually heavy or sluggish, making it difficult to lift or move with normal strength. You might also notice one side of your face feeling momentarily slack, droopy, or unresponsive, perhaps lasting just a few moments before returning to normal. The absolute key word here, the critical differentiator, is one side. A stroke primarily affects one hemisphere of the brain, and because each hemisphere controls the opposite side of the body, symptoms of weakness or numbness will almost exclusively be isolated to a single side. So, if you experience sudden numbness or weakness that is distinctly confined to one side of your body, even if it completely resolves within 5 minutes, it is highly unlikely to be merely a pinched nerve, a muscle cramp, or the result of sleeping awkwardly on your arm. That, in all likelihood, is a potential transient ischemic attack, TIA, a potent indicator that a clot or a transient blockage briefly interrupted the vital blood flow to the motor or sensory regions of your brain. Extensive clinical research underscores this point, suggesting that approximately 43% of individuals who ultimately experience a full-blown stroke reported experiencing episodes of one-sided weakness or numbness in the days or weeks preceding the major event. Commit this pattern to memory and consider it a foundational principle for recognition. One side, brief, unexplained. Warning sign number 2, a sudden difficulty with speech or understanding speech. You might be engaged in a conversation mid-sentence when suddenly the words you intend to utter seem to vanish from your mind. You know precisely what you want to convey. The thought is crystal clear, but the syllables come out jumbled, garbled, or simply refuse to form, leaving you frustrated and confused. Conversely, you might be listening to someone speak, and their words, despite being in your native language, suddenly sound like an incomprehensible foreign tongue, making it impossible to process or grasp their meaning. This alarming phenomenon is medically termed aphasia, which simply refers to any disruption of the brain's intricate language processing capabilities. The language centers of the brain, predominantly located in the left hemisphere for most individuals, are exquisitely sensitive to even brief, subtle drops in blood flow. A partial blockage lasting merely 30 seconds can be enough to completely scramble your ability to fluently speak, articulate thoughts, or comprehend spoken language. And because these episodes of aphasia often resolve quickly, individuals are prone to dismissing them as a senior moment, a sign of being overtired or simple absent-mindedness. It is crucial to understand that this is emphatically not just a senior moment. It is a significant neurological neurological event directly attributable to a specific vascular cause, signaling a transient but critical interruption to the brain's most vital functions. Warning sign number 3, a sudden and severe headache with no obvious explanation. It's important to distinguish this from the garden variety headaches we all experience. I am not referring to a common tension headache or the dull ache that might develop after staring at a computer screen for an extended period, or even a typical migraine. I am describing a headache that arrives with startling, explosive intensity, often likened to a thunderclap, sudden, overwhelmingly severe, and utterly unlike anything you have ever felt before in your life. This particular type of headache is an urgent signal that can indicate a hemorrhagic event, where a small, perhaps temporary, bleed is occurring within or around the delicate structures of the brain. While most commonly associated with hemorrhagic strokes, it can also occur with ischemic events, particularly those affecting the posterior circulation, the intricate network of blood vessels supplying the back of your brain, which is crucial for functions like vision, balance, and coordination. If you experience a sudden, excruciatingly severe headache, especially if it is accompanied by other concerning symptoms such as nausea, persistent neck stiffness, or an unusual sensitivity to light, you absolutely must take it seriously and seek immediate medical attention. This is not just a particularly bad migraine, it is a potential medical emergency. What may genuinely surprise many people is the clinical data revealing that a significant number of individuals who subsequently suffered a major hemorrhagic stroke reported experiencing an unusually intense, worst ever headache anywhere from 1 to 3 days before the full catastrophic event. This premonitory headache is a powerful and often overlooked warning. Warning sign number 4, sudden trouble with vision in one or both eyes. This alarming symptom can manifest in various ways: a sudden onset of blurriness, the abrupt appearance of double vision, or a partial loss of your visual field, meaning that a portion of what you normally perceive simply goes dark or becomes obscured, as if a segment of your vision has vanished. The visual cortex, the brain's processing center for sight, is situated at the very back of your brain and receives its critical blood supply from the posterior cerebral arteries. A brief temporary clot in this vital area can induce a condition known as amaurosis fugax, which literally translates to temporary blindness. This phenomenon is often vividly described by patients as feeling like a curtain or a shade is being pulled down over one eye, obscuring their vision for a short duration. These episodes can last mere seconds to several minutes and then resolve completely, leaving the individual with seemingly normal vision. Unfortunately, most people experiencing this assume it's an isolated eye problem, perhaps a retinal issue, eye strain, or simply needing an updated prescription, and consequently, they might schedule a routine appointment with their optometrist for the following month. Listen carefully, because this distinction is absolutely critical. Temporary vision loss, particularly when sudden and profound, is not an isolated eye event. It is fundamentally a brain event. It signifies that the vital blood flow to your visual cortex was interrupted, even if momentarily, and the root cause of this interruption is upstream, located within the vessels that are feeding your brain, demanding urgent neurological investigation, not just an optical checkup. Warning sign number 5, a sudden loss of balance or coordination. Picture this. You're walking down a familiar hallway, completely engrossed in your thoughts, when suddenly, without warning, you inexplicably veer sharply to one side. Or perhaps you reach for a door handle, an automatic, everyday motion, and bafflingly miss it by several inches. You stand up from a comfortable chair, and for a disconcerting moment, the entire room seems to tilt, making you feel profoundly unsteady. These seemingly innocuous incidents are often powerful warning signs. The cerebellum, a crucial part of the brain nestled at the lower back, functions as your body's sophisticated coordination center. It too relies on a dedicated and robust blood supply. And when that supply is briefly compromised, even for a short duration, you experience what clinicians refer to as ataxia, a medical term for uncoordinated or unsteady movement. This particular sign is remarkably common in posterior circulation strokes, which are unfortunately among the most frequently missed types of strokes. This is because their symptoms, dizziness, general imbalance, a sense of clumsiness, can mimic so many other benign conditions, such as inner ear problems, dehydration, or simple fatigue, leading to misdiagnosis or dismissal. However, here's the crucial distinction to remember. If the dizziness or imbalance comes on suddenly, lasts only briefly, and then resolves on its own, especially if it occurs in conjunction with any of the other warning signs I have described, it is highly unlikely to be mere vertigo originating from an inner ear issue. Instead, it is a potent and urgent warning sign originating from your brain's vascular system, demanding immediate attention. Warning sign number 6, sudden confusion or difficulty with simple cognitive tasks. This particular warning sign is often deeply unsettling for those who experience it. You might be attempting to use your phone, a device you navigate daily, and suddenly realize you cannot recall how to dial a familiar number or even what a particular icon represents. You look at a clock, perhaps one you've glanced at thousands of times, and for a fleeting moment you cannot accurately tell what time it is or process the meaning of the hands or digits. Someone asks you a simple, straightforward question, and your mind goes completely blank, unable to formulate a response or even process the query itself. This is far more than normal absent-mindedness, a momentary lapse, or a minor distraction. This represents a temporary but significant disruption to your higher cognitive functions, typically affecting the frontal or parietal lobes of the brain, which are responsible for executive function, spatial awareness, and complex thought processes. When blood flow in these critical areas dips, even for a mere 60 to 90 seconds, your ability to process information, organize your thoughts, or respond to basic stimuli can briefly but profoundly shut down. And because these episodes resolve quickly, people often convince themselves that they were simply distracted, overtired, or momentarily stressed. But the truth is more alarming. You were not merely distracted, your brain was briefly suffocating, signaling a critical vascular event that warrants serious investigation. Warning sign number 7, an unusual and overwhelming fatigue that comes on without explanation. Of all the subtle warning signs of an impending stroke, this one may be the most frequently overlooked and consequently the most dangerous to dismiss. Clinical data strongly suggests that sudden, profound, and otherwise inexplicable exhaustion, particularly when observed in women, can serve as a significant pre-stroke symptom. This is not the familiar tiredness you experience after a long, demanding day at work or a restless night's sleep. This is a bone-deep, pervasive fatigue that makes you feel as though you physically cannot move, cannot stay awake, and are utterly drained of all energy without any discernible cause. Researchers postulate that this overwhelming fatigue may be intricately linked to the body's subtle inflammatory response as small clots form and then dissolve within the brain's vasculature, or as the brain's insatiable oxygen demands begin to exceed what a compromised or intermittently blocked blood flow can adequately deliver. If you felt perfectly fine all week, maintaining your usual energy levels, and then suddenly, without any logical precursor, feel as though you have been awake for 3 consecutive days straight, experiencing an oppressive weariness that defies explanation, it is crucial not to simply assume it is just your age or a fleeting bug. This profound, unexplained fatigue is a signal that most people miss entirely, but it is one that your body might be sending to alert you to an underlying vascular vulnerability. Let me share a poignant example from my own clinical experience, a story that perfectly illustrates the insidious nature of these often missed signals. I recall a patient named Margaret, a truly remarkable woman of 61, a retired schoolteacher whose mind was as sharp and incisive as anyone I have ever had the privilege of meeting. She came into my office for what was scheduled as a routine follow-up visit and, almost as an afterthought, casually mentioned a strange episode she had experienced the previous week. She recounted how she was sitting, nostalgically grading some old papers she had kept from her teaching days, when suddenly the familiar words on the page morphed into complete nonsense. She could clearly see the individual letters, but her brain simply would not allow them to form coherent words or sentences. This disorienting experience lasted for approximately 2 minutes, and then, just as abruptly, it cleared up completely. She laughed it off when telling me, jokingly attributing it to needing new glasses or simply being tired. 2 days later, another peculiar incident occurred. She had trouble zipping up her coat. Her left hand, typically agile and dexterous, felt clumsy and weak for about 30 seconds, making the simple task unexpectedly challenging. Again, she dismissed it, blaming it on an onset of arthritis in her joints. When she recounted these seemingly minor incidents, I immediately stopped asking about her vision or her joints. My line of questioning shifted gears entirely. I began to ask detailed questions about her blood vessels, probing for signs of transient neurological events. We promptly ran a carotid ultrasound, a painless, non-invasive imaging test that visualizes the main arteries supplying blood to the brain. The results were stark. We discovered a significant 60% narrowing in her right internal carotid artery, a considerable buildup of atherosclerotic plaque that had been silently accumulating for years. That plaque, we determined, was intermittently throwing off tiny fragments, microemboli, which were briefly traveling into her brain, causing temporary blockages in blood flow and then dissolving, leading to her fleeting symptoms. Each and every one of those dismissed episodes, from the garbled words to the clumsy hand, was a transient ischemic attack, TIA. Each one was a clear, unambiguous warning shot fired across her bow. We immediately initiated Margaret on the appropriate protocol, targeted blood flow support medications, vigilant vascular monitoring, and comprehensive lifestyle changes, the specifics of which I will share with you in a moment. Within 3 months, her follow-up imaging showed remarkable stabilization of the plaque and no further transient events. Margaret never experienced a full-blown stroke, but I will tell you this with absolute certainty. Had Margaret ignored those critical signs for another 2 weeks, or dismissed them entirely as she was initially inclined to do, her story might have concluded in a tragically different manner. She later told me, with profound gratitude, that the only reason she even thought to mention those strange episodes was because she had previously watched a video very much like this one. That precisely is why I dedicate myself to this work. Now, let me take you deeper into the fundamental mechanisms of stroke prevention, because I want to unequivocally bust a prevalent myth that may be inadvertently putting you at significant risk. Most people have been led to believe that the cornerstone of stroke prevention revolves almost entirely around diligently lowering their cholesterol levels. The prevailing wisdom suggests that if you successfully get your LDL, bad cholesterol number, down to a desirable range, you are essentially safe from stroke. Let me be direct and unambiguous with you. That is not the complete picture, and in some critical cases, this narrow focus is dangerously misleading and can create a false sense of security. The true primary driver of stroke risk in the vast majority of individuals is not simply the absolute amount of cholesterol circulating in your blood. Far more importantly, it is the health and integrity of your endothelium. This term simply refers to the thin, delicate inner lining of your blood vessels, a single layer of cells that plays an incredibly active and dynamic role in regulating vascular health. When that crucial endothelial lining is chronically damaged, whether by persistent inflammation throughout the body, by years of elevated blood sugar levels, by the destructive effects of oxidative stress, or by the relentless pounding of high blood pressure against arterial walls, it undergoes a profound transformation. It becomes sticky, inflamed, and dysfunctional. This compromised endothelium actively attracts cholesterol particles, promotes the accumulation of atherosclerotic plaque, and, critically, encourages the formation of dangerous blood clots. You can, in fact, have perfectly normal, even optimal cholesterol levels, and still harbor a severely damaged, dysfunctional endothelium. This is not an exaggeration or a fringe theory. This is a well-established scientific fact, supported by extensive published data. Research has consistently demonstrated that a significant percentage of stroke patients presented with cholesterol levels well within the so-called normal or healthy range. What they did have, almost without exception, was endothelial dysfunction, inflamed, damaged vessel walls that were actively promoting the very conditions conducive to clot formation and stroke. So, if you have been told that your cholesterol is fine and therefore you are not at risk, it is imperative to dig deeper. Ask your doctor about your C-reactive protein levels, a marker of systemic inflammation, your fasting insulin, an indicator of metabolic health and insulin resistance, and your hemoglobin A1C, a measure of average blood sugar over 3 months. These specific markers offer a far more accurate and comprehensive assessment of inflammation and metabolic health, the actual biological terrain where strokes are most often born. It is also something profoundly important to consider how the risk profile for stroke dynamically changes with age. This is not merely an abstract observation. It has direct implications for the urgency and type of preventative measures you should adopt. After the age of 40, a significant physiological shift begins to occur. The endothelium, that vital inner lining of your blood vessels, starts to lose its inherent ability to efficiently produce nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a miraculous molecule that acts as a natural vasodilator, meaning it keeps your blood vessels relaxed, flexible, and wide open, ensuring smooth, unimpeded blood flow. As its production declines, vessels become less pliable. After the age of 50, arterial stiffness measurably accelerates, making vessels more rigid and less resilient to pressure fluctuations. Concurrently, the risk of atrial fibrillation, an irregular and often rapid heartbeat that significantly promotes the formation of blood clots within the heart chambers, begins to climb sharply. These clots can then travel to the brain, causing an embolic stroke. After the age of 60, the cumulative burden of chronic inflammation, progressive plaque buildup within arteries, and a measurable reduction in overall vascular elasticity means that the crucial margin between experiencing a transient warning sign and suffering a full, devastating stroke narrows considerably. The stakes become exponentially higher with each passing decade. How old are you? I encourage you to share your age in the comment section below. I am genuinely interested in understanding the age demographic of our viewers because the urgency and specific emphasis of starting this preventative protocol are genuinely different for someone who is 45 compared to someone who is 65. My goal is to create content and share information that directly meets you where you are in your health journey, providing the most relevant and impactful guidance possible. Here is the practical, actionable protocol, a series of concrete steps you can begin to implement today, right now, without requiring any special equipment or expensive interventions. Each of these recommendations is not merely anecdotal advice. It is mechanistically justified by sound physiological principles and supported by clinical research. Step 1. Walk briskly for 30 minutes every single day, ideally first thing in the morning. This seemingly simple act is profoundly powerful. Brisk walking actively stimulates the production of nitric oxide within your endothelium, that critical inner lining of your blood vessels. This increased nitric oxide production subsequently dilates your blood vessels, improving overall blood flow, and critically reduces the stickiness of your arterial walls, making them less prone to plaque accumulation and clot formation. Morning is the most ideal time to engage in this activity because during the first 2 hours after waking, your blood is naturally at its thickest and most prone to clotting. A 30-minute brisk walk every day is non-negotiable for vascular health. Step 2. Hydrate immediately upon waking with 16 ounces, approximately 500 ml of plain water before anything else. This means before your coffee, before your breakfast, before any other liquids. Dehydration, even mild, has a direct and measurable effect on your blood. It thickens it, making it more viscous and significantly increasing your risk of clot formation. your body has been without fluid for a considerable period, typically 6 to 8 hours during sleep. That first generous glass of water in the morning is not merely a trendy wellness habit. It is a direct physiological intervention against the very conditions that promote dangerous clot formation and compromise vascular integrity. Step 3. Perform a simple daily blood pressure check at home using an automated monitor at the same time each morning. Ensure you do this before eating or drinking coffee. It is vital to record these numbers consistently. What you are primarily looking for is consistency and trends over time. A systolic number, the top number that fluctuates more than 15 points from day to day, or that routinely registers above 130 mmHg, is sending you crucial information about the state of your vascular health. This subtle but significant information is almost certainly going to be missed by a single, isolated reading taken in a doctor's office once a year. Home blood pressure monitors are readily available, inexpensive, and can be purchased at any pharmacy, representing a minimal investment for a maximum return on health insights. This takes 5 minutes a day. Make it a habit. Step 4. Significantly reduce your intake of refined sugar and processed carbohydrates. I am not talking about embarking on a restrictive, temporary diet. I am talking about fundamentally understanding a critical biological truth. Chronically elevated blood sugar levels directly and profoundly damage your endothelium. Sugar molecules actively glycate the proteins in your vessel walls, meaning they bond to the structural proteins and cellular components, rendering them stiff, inflamed, and dysfunctional. This process accelerates arterial damage. Therefore, make a conscious effort to cut back drastically on items like white bread, sugary beverages, sodas, sweetened juices, packaged snacks, and baked goods. Replace these damaging culprits with whole, unprocessed foods, a vibrant array of vegetables, lean proteins, nutrient-dense nuts, seeds, and legumes. This, without exaggeration, is the single most impactful and transformative dietary change you can make for the long-term health of your vascular system. It costs nothing to implement and can be started this very week. Step 5. Practice slow, deep breathing for 5 minutes before bed, 3 to 5 times per week. This is a powerful, yet often overlooked tool for systemic health. Inhale deeply and slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold your breath gently for 4 seconds, and then exhale slowly and completely through your mouth for 6 seconds. This specific breathing pattern actively stimulates and activates your parasympathetic nervous system, often referred to as your rest and digest system. This activation, in turn, helps to significantly lower your levels of the stress hormone cortisol and reduces chronic systemic inflammation throughout your body. All of these physiological effects directly protect and preserve the delicate lining of your blood vessels, counteracting the daily wear and tear that can lead to endothelial damage. 5 minutes before sleep. This simple practice works because it systematically lowers the inflammatory load that relentlessly degrades your endothelium night after night. Step 6. Ask your doctor to check your carotid arteries with an ultrasound if you are over 50 and have never had one. This is a painless, entirely non-invasive diagnostic test that utilizes sound waves to visualize the arteries in your neck that supply blood to your brain. This test can reveal crucial information, such as any narrowing or plaque buildup in these vital arteries, often years before it progresses to cause a symptomatic TIA or a full-blown stroke. It typically takes only 15 minutes to perform and could, quite literally, save your life by identifying a silent underlying risk factor. If your doctor dismisses this reasonable request or tells you it's unnecessary, do not hesitate to seek a second opinion or find a healthcare provider who is proactive and will take your vascular health concerns seriously. You are your own best advocate. Step 7. Eliminate or drastically reduce alcohol consumption. The accumulating clinical data is increasingly clear and compelling on this point. Even what is considered moderate alcohol intake can have measurable detrimental effects. It raises blood pressure, significantly promotes the occurrence of atrial fibrillation, that irregular heartbeat that can cause clots, and impairs the liver's intricate ability to produce and regulate essential clotting factors. If you are regularly consuming more than one serving of alcohol per day, you are, unequivocally, adding a measurable and avoidable stroke risk to your health profile. This is not a moral judgment or a commentary on personal choices. It is a straightforward statement of human physiology and vascular risk. Understanding this can empower you to make informed decisions for your long-term brain health. Before we delve any further, I need to articulate this with absolute clarity and urgency. There are specific symptoms that should prompt you to seek immediate medical attention, either by calling emergency services or going directly to the nearest emergency room. These are not conditions to monitor at home, to sleep on, or to wait and see if they improve tomorrow or next week. These demand immediate action. If you experience sudden weakness or numbness on one side of your body that persists for more than a few minutes, do not hesitate. Call emergency services like 911 or your local equivalent without delay. If you suddenly lose the ability to speak clearly, articulate your thoughts, or comprehend someone speaking to you, even if the symptoms appear to resolve, call emergency services immediately. If you develop a sudden, excruciatingly severe headache, unlike any you have ever experienced before, especially if it is accompanied by symptoms such as neck stiffness, projectile vomiting, or altered consciousness, call emergency services without a second thought. If you experience sudden vision loss in one or both eyes, even if it seems to improve quickly, you need to proceed directly to the emergency room for urgent evaluation. These are not minor ailments. They are profound neurological emergencies. Every single minute of delay in treating an acute stroke costs approximately 1.9 million neurons. This staggering figure is not a metaphorical exaggeration. It is meticulously published clinical data. Time is brain tissue. Act immediately. Your future cognitive function and physical independence depend on it. I am Dr. Henry Collins. I have spent 15 years in the medical field, witnessing patients spend invaluable time, significant financial resources, and emotional energy on treatments that primarily target the appearance of a problem, while the actual underlying causes, the chronic damage to blood vessel walls, the pervasive systemic inflammation, the insidious metabolic dysfunction, quietly continue to worsen beneath the surface, often undetected until it's too late. No one sitting in a white coat in a clinic office, bound by the constraints of a revenue-driven system, is going to walk you through the comprehensive understanding I have just provided. There is simply no existing billing code for a thorough 20-minute explanation of how your endothelium functions, why its health is paramount, and why it matters infinitely more than just your cholesterol number alone. The prevailing healthcare system, by its very design, generates revenue, primarily from office visits, complex procedures, and ongoing prescriptions, not from empowering patients who possess a deep, proactive understanding of their own vascular health, enabling them to effectively protect themselves at home with accurate, actionable information. This situation is not your fault. You were never told the real cause, the true story of stroke prevention. But now, you know, and that profound knowledge changes everything. I urge you to subscribe to Dr. Henry Collins and hit the like button on this video. Every single subscriber and every like helps ensure that the next person who desperately needs this vital information can find it easily. And if this video has helped you, if it has provided you with a new perspective or actionable insights, please share it widely with someone you love. By doing so, you may have just given them a real chance, perhaps even the only chance, to catch something early, to recognize the warning signs on the day before it would have been too late.